The ceramic mug slips from my fingers before I can stop it. Coffee splashes across my kitchen table, soaking the corner of yesterday's mail, but I barely notice. My eyes remain fixed on the laptop screen, refusing to believe what I'm seeing. No, I whisper. No, no, no. Where $31,042 should be displayed in my savings account, a single stark figure stares back at me. $0. My hands tremble as I refresh the page. Nothing changes. The balance remains at 0, and a new transaction appears in the history. Withdrawal counter minus $31,042 with yesterday's timestamp. This has to be a mistake, I mutter, grabbing my phone. The bank's hold music plays for 17 excruciating minutes before a customer service representative answers. I clutch the phone so tightly my knuckles turn white. I'm looking at your account now, Miss Reynolds, the bank officer says after I explain. Then comes that uncomfortable pause, the kind that signals bad news. The withdrawal was processed yesterday at 2:14 p.m. at our Maple Street branch. Another pause. The withdrawal slip was signed by Patricia Reynolds. My mother. That's impossible, I say. But even as the words leave my mouth, a sick certainty settles in my stomach. She wouldn't. I'm afraid she did, Miss Reynolds. As a co-signer on the account, she has full withdrawal privileges. The room tilts slightly. But that's my college fund, my grandparents' gift, my savings from 3 years of weekend shifts at the bookstore. I understand your concern, the officer says, her voice professionally sympathetic. However, legally, I hang up. 15 minutes later, I'm driving across town, my hands gripping the steering wheel with unnecessary force. The familiar route to my mother's house now feels like a journey into enemy territory. The colonial house, with its perfectly trimmed hedges and hanging flower baskets, comes into view. Once it meant safety. Now it looms like a fortress built against me. I park haphazardly at the curb and stride up the brick walkway. When my mother opens the door, her expression shifts from surprise to something harder, more defensive. Madeline, she says coolly, this is unexpected. I push past her into the foyer. Where is it? Where's what? My money, I say, my voice shaking despite my efforts to control it. The $31,000 you took from my account yesterday. She sighs, waving her hand dismissively as she closes the door. Let's discuss this in the kitchen. Gary's home. Of course he is. My stepfather of 2 years stands at the kitchen counter, arms crossed over his chest, watching me with that smug half smile that makes my skin crawl. You weren't being a team player with the new family, my mother says, leaning against the granite island. Consider it a lesson in gratitude. The casual cruelty of her words steals my breath. Gratitude? For what? Stealing my future? A floorboard creaks overhead, and I look up to see Brooke, my stepsister, standing at the top of the stairs, 18, pretty, with a smirk that matches her father's. Brooke's going to need that money for her college experience, my mother explains, as if discussing borrowing a sweater. Cornell is expensive, and she deserves the best start in life. Flash memories hit me in rapid succession. Graduation day 2 years ago. Grandpa presenting me with a check for $28,000, the product of years of their saving. Mom's tight smile as cameras flashed, the part-time job that allowed me to add $3,000 more. Mom growing increasingly distant after marrying Gary, subtle comments about my selfishness for wanting to attend college out of state instead of staying home to bond with Brooke. That money was my future. My voice breaks, betraying the emotion I'm trying desperately to contain. My mother's eyes harden. Maybe you should have thought about that before putting yourself first. From upstairs comes the sound of Brooke's laughter, light and amused at my distress. In that moment, something shifts inside me. This house, with its familiar smells and sounds, is no longer home. These people are no longer family in any way that matters. I'm leaving, I say quietly. Today. Don't be dramatic, Madeline. My mother sighs, examining her manicure. You're overacting. Where would you even go? I don't answer. Instead, I climb the stairs to my bedroom, what's left of it since Brooke has gradually claimed half the space for her belongings. I pull out my duffel bag and begin packing essentials. Behind me, my mother hovers in the doorway. This tantrum is unnecessary, she says. It's just money. Family is what matters. I place the framed family photo taken before she met Gary face down on the dresser. A text chimes on my phone. Grandpa, I'm outside when you're ready. He knew. Somehow, he anticipated this moment. 10 minutes later, I walk out the front door, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. You'll be back when you realize family is all you have, my mother calls after me. I don't look back. The kitchen table at my grandparents' house has become my war room. Papers spread across the worn oak surface like battlefield maps. Bank statements, credit reports, collection notices. Each document a new wound. Look at the pattern, Grandpa says, tapping a weathered finger on the bank statements. His face holds none of the warmth I'm accustomed to. Only grim determination. October, November, December. Small withdrawals. Testing the waters before taking it all. My stomach twists as I trace the evidence. $50 here. $200 there. The slow bleeding of my account for months before the final withdrawal. And these? I ask, voice barely steady as I point to 3 credit card statements bearing my name. Cards I never applied for. Never activated, never used. Opened last year while you were still legally a dependent. Grandpa removes his reading glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. Maxed out within 2 months. The familiar scent of my grandmother's apple bread fills the kitchen, but nausea overrides any appetite. I push away from the table and pace the small kitchen, the linoleum cool beneath my bare feet. So it wasn't just impulse, not just the college money. The realization solidifies like concrete in my chest. She planned this, for months. My phone buzzes on the table. Another text message. I don't need to check to know who it's from. Mother has been carpet bombing the family with her version of events. Grandpa picks up the phone, his face hardening as he reads. Madeline abandoned us after all we've done for her. He sets the phone down with deliberate care, as if touching something contaminated. She sent similar messages to everyone in the family. Abandonment. The word tastes bitter. She stole my future and claims I abandoned her. The doorbell rings. Grandma's voice floats from the entryway, followed by another familiar voice that makes me freeze. Aunt Helen steps into the kitchen, her presence a shock. Mother's estranged sister, the family black sheep I've seen perhaps 5 times in my life. Her eyes so similar to my mother's, yet utterly different lock with mine. Your mother did the same thing to me 20 years ago, she says without preamble. No hello, no how are you. Just truth, served cold. I sink back into my chair. What? My college fund. Smaller than yours, 12,000. She convinced our parents I was using drugs and needed an intervention. By the time they discovered the truth, the money was gone. Helen sets her purse on the counter with a thud. Gary isn't the first husband she's used as an accomplice either. The pieces shift and reform in my mind. The whispered arguments between my grandparents that stopped when I entered rooms. The strained holidays. The careful way they never criticized my mother directly. Why didn't anyone tell me? Grandma enters with coffee mugs on a tray, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. We thought we could protect you by keeping the peace. We were wrong. The tuition deadline looms like an approaching storm. Even with my grandparents' offer of room and board, the numbers don't add up. My prime bookstore job barely covers textbooks. She tried to access your financial aid forms? Grandpa says, sliding another paper toward me. The financial aid office called yesterday. Someone claiming to be you requested a change of address for all correspondence. My throat tightens. How did you? Miss Abernathy in financial aid recognized something wasn't right. She's the one who suggested I check your credit report. My phone buzzes again. A social media notification. Brooke has posted photos of my mother in tears. The caption reads, "Some children forget everything their parents sacrificed for them." The comments section overflows with sympathy for her, condemnation for me. Sleep has become a luxury I can't afford. Nights spent staring at the ceiling of my childhood bedroom in my grandparents' house, calculating and recalculating impossible math. Days spent between classes and work, jumping at every phone notification, certain it's another attack. Madeline Reynolds? The voice belongs to a woman I've never met. She stands in the doorway of the financial aid office, her badge identifying her as Diane Abernathy, Financial Aid Director. Yes, that's me. Come in. She closes the door behind us, voice lowered. I've reviewed your application again. My heart sinks. Another rejection. I've seen this before, she says, sliding a folder across her desk. We can make this work. The folder contains a scholarship application already filled out with my information. Half tuition. Not everything, but enough to make the impossible merely difficult. Why are you helping me? The question slips out before I can stop it. Miss Abernathy's smile holds no pity, only recognition. Let's just say I've been where you are. Different circumstances, same pattern. That night, I sleep without nightmares for the first time since walking out of my mother's house. The restraining order prohibiting access to my financial information sits on my nightstand like a shield. The next morning brings Aunt Helen again, this time with a small leather book. Your mother keeps a diary, she says, placing a hand on the book. Not this one, this is just a planner. But she has always kept detailed records of her projects. Projects? People she plans to use. She's been planning this since before the wedding, Madeline. You aren't the first, and Brooke won't be the last. Grandpa's hand rests heavy on my shoulder. We enabled her behavior for years, he admits, voice rough with emotion. Trying to keep the peace. Making excuses. Cleaning up messes. I look at the scattered papers on the table. Evidence of a betrayal so fundamental it rewrites my entire childhood. How do I ever trust anyone again? You start by trusting yourself, Aunt Helen says. The voice inside that recognized something was wrong long before you had proof. That's the voice they try to silence first. Through the kitchen window, I see my grandmother in her garden, pruning roses with careful precision, cutting away the dead growth so the healthy stems can flourish. What now? I ask. Now, Grandpa says, picking up the restraining order. We make sure she can never do this to you again, and then we figure out how to get you through college without her. Aunt Helen's smile holds no warmth, only determination. And maybe, if we're very thorough, we make sure Patricia understands exactly what she's lost by treating her daughter like an ATM. For the first time since my coffee cup shattered on my kitchen floor, I feel something other than fear and betrayal, something that feels dangerously like hope. The text message lands like a grenade on my otherwise ordinary Tuesday morning. Brooke needs $3,200 for her college apartment. Can you help? 6 years, 2 months, and 14 days of silence from my mother, and this is what finally prompts her to reach out. Not an apology, not a question about my life. Just another demand for money, as if $31,000 wasn't enough. I set my phone down on my desk, noting how my hand remains steady. The familiar rush of adrenaline that once accompanied any contact from her has dulled to a minor irritation, like a paper cut that barely stings. Through my office window, the spring sunshine bathes the city in gold. My degree hangs on the wall beside my financial analyst certification. Both hard-won, paid for with double shifts, scholarships, and a stubbornness that still surprises me. My phone buzzes again. Uncle Robert this time. Your mother is worried sick about you. Time to let bygones be bygones. Then Aunt Patricia. Family helps family. You've done well for yourself now. Then Cousin Melissa, who I haven't spoken to since high school graduation. Must be nice having so much money you can ignore your family. The flying monkeys have been deployed. I silence my phone and finish reviewing the Henderson portfolio before lunch. 6 years ago, this barrage would have sent me spiraling. Now, I simply note the pattern and continue with my day. The voicemail waits until my lunch break. Madeline. Gary's voice fills my car as I unwrap my sandwich. Your mother has been more than patient with your attitude. This continued silence is childish and disrespectful. Brooke needs your help, and family obligations don't disappear just because you've decided to hold a grudge. I delete the message before he finishes. On my phone screen, a notification shows that I've been tagged in a Facebook post. My mother's status update reads, "Some people forget where they came from once they taste a little success. Sad how money changes people." 22 reactions. 14 sympathetic comments. The old Madeline would have immediately typed a furious defense. The new Madeline takes another bite of her sandwich and checks her investment portfolio instead. My apartment welcomes me home that evening, small but entirely mine. The rent is reasonable, my savings account healthy despite starting from absolute zero. The framed photo of my grandparents sits on my bookshelf next to the carefully organized financial records they helped me establish after everything happened. I brew a cup of tea and open my laptop. The folder labeled Documentation contains 6 years of meticulous record keeping. Screenshots of her social media attacks, recordings of voicemails, transcripts of every interaction. Grandpa taught me well. Paper trails outlast emotional appeals, he always says. When my phone rings at 9:13 p.m., I answer on the third ring. "Hello, Mother." "Maddie, darling." Her voice drips with honey, nothing like the venom in her Facebook posts. "It's so good to hear your voice. Missed you terribly." "Have you?" "Of course we have. You're my daughter." The subtle emphasis on the possessive. "I know we've had our differences, but that's water under the bridge now." "Is it?" "Families disagree sometimes. That's normal. But at the end of the day, we're still family." I recognize each tactic as she deploys it. The gaslighting, differences instead of theft. The normalization. All families have conflict. The appeal to blood ties when convenient. "When will you be returning my $31,000? My voice remains calm, almost pleasant. A beat of silence. "Maddie, that's ancient history. We need to focus on moving forward. Brooke really needs your help with this apartment situation." "When will you be returning my $31,000? I repeat. "You're being ridiculous." The honey vanishes from her voice. "That money went to family expenses. You benefited too. When will you be returning my money?" "Stop being so cold. This isn't the daughter I raised." I almost laugh. "No, it isn't." The mask drops completely. "You've always been selfish. Your father would be ashamed." I end the call and block her number, a boundary 6 years in the making. My grandfather calls the next morning. "Your grandmother and I received quite the earful from your mother last night. Are you okay?" Takes more than Patricia's tantrums to rattle us. We've been fielding these calls for years. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Standing up to bullies never gets easier, but it gets more satisfying." My phone chimes with an email notification. Aunt Helen has publicly responded to my mother's latest social media attack. "Interesting how you never mentioned the $31,000 you took from Madeline's account." Messages from college friends follow. "We've got your back. Need anything? Just say the word." Even my boss stops by my desk. Family stuff can be rough. Take a mental health day if you need it. The support surrounds me like armor as the week progresses and the pressure for my mother intensifies. Each flying monkey receives the same response. "My mother stole $31,000 from me. When she returns it, we can discuss family obligations." The shocked silence that follows each time is deeply satisfying. Saturday afternoon finds me at my grandparents' house, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee at their kitchen table. I keep waiting to stop feeling hurt. I admit to my grandfather, tears finally breaking through. But I don't think that day will come. He covers my hand with his weathered one. "You don't stop feeling it. You just stop letting it control you." His words settle something inside me. I've been waiting for an apology that will never come, closure that only exists in movies. The real freedom lies in acceptance. Monday morning, I call my lawyer. What's the statute of limitations on financial fraud in our state? 7 years, she answers. Are you finally ready to discuss legal options? Just preparing for every possibility. I set up new email filters that evening. All communication from family members routes to a special folder, preserved as evidence but no longer able to disrupt my peace. My therapist has helped me prepare responses for every possible manipulation tactic. The certified letter arrives 3 weeks later. The return address shows my old bank. Inside, a business card is paper-clipped to a sealed envelope. The bank officer's handwritten note reads, "I found something you should see about your account closure." My hand trembles as I begin to open it. I slide the letter into the envelope, my handwriting precise and controlled on the address label. No personal note. No, dear Mom. Just cold professional language citing exact figures. $31,000.4, $2 withdrawn on the 17th of June, 2017, plus accrued interest at standard savings rate over 6 years. $4,526.88. Total, $35,527.3. The certified mail receipt costs $3.75. Money well spent for proof they can't deny receiving it. My counter offer sits at the bottom of the page, a single sentence. I will consider helping Brooke when my $31,000 plus 6 years of interest is returned in full. The postal worker stamps the receipt. Someone's in trouble, she jokes. I don't smile. Someone certainly is. 3 days later, Susan from reception calls my desk extension. Madeline, there's someone here demanding to see you. Her voice drops to a whisper. She says she's your mother. My stomach clenches, but I've prepared for this. I stand, straighten my blouse, and walk calmly to the lobby. Mom paces like a caged animal, her designer purse clutched against her chest. When she spots me, her voice rises to a theatrical pitch. There you are. How could you send such a heartless letter? Your sister needs you. Heads turn. Exactly what she wants. This isn't the place for this discussion, I say quietly. When is the place? You won't answer our calls. Brooke is devastated. My daughter is abandoning her sister when she needs her most. Mr. Thornhill from accounting pauses by the water cooler, watching with undisguised interest. 2 of my team members hover near the elevator, concern etched on their faces. Your daughter stole $31,000 from me, I say, my voice steady. That's the only abandonment that occurred here. Mom's face flushes crimson. That money was family money. We needed it for Brooke's education, which you took without asking, without permission. I was on the account. It was perfectly legal. Legal isn't the same as right. I check my watch. I have a meeting in 5 minutes. Please leave before security is called. Mom's voice cracks. After everything I've done for you. When I don't respond, she turns to the small audience that's gathered. My daughter won't help her sister with a tiny amount for her apartment, after all the sacrifices I made raising her alone. Susan, who has heard the whole story over lunch last month, steps forward. Ma'am, I need to ask you to leave the premises. Mom sputters, clutching her purse tighter. This is how you treat family, Madeline? This is who you've become? I don't flinch. This is who you taught me to be. As security approaches, she storms out, leaving stunned silence in her wake. Mr. Thornhill meets my eyes. That took guts, Reynolds. Even my boss, watching from the hallway, gives me a respectful nod. The texts start that evening. Mom, you've made your point. Let's discuss this like adults. Gary, your behavior today was completely unprofessional. We're trying to reach a reasonable solution. I forward each message to my lawyer without responding. Grandfather calls after dinner. They contacted us today. My hand tightens around the phone. What did they want? Gary tried the reasonable businessman act. When that didn't work, he suggested we might want to influence you before things get complicated. My throat tightens. I'm sorry they're dragging you into this. Don't you worry about us. Helen filed the cease and desist letter this afternoon. Any further contact and we proceed with harassment charges. Later that night, I see Brooke's tearful video on social media. Family means standing together through hard times. She sniffles into the camera. I never thought I'd be abandoned by my own sister when I needed her most. The comment section fills with sympathetic responses until Aunt Helen drops her bomb. Tell the truth about the $31,000 your parents stole from Madeline's college fund to pay for your apartment. Brooke. Then we can talk about family obligations. The whispers start among family friends. Mom's church group suddenly has scheduling conflicts when she tries to organize the annual fundraiser. Two of Gary's business associates ask uncomfortable questions about that situation with your stepdaughter's money. Brooke's direct message arrives a week later. I didn't know about the money, I swear. Then Mom's text. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding about the funds. Gary's follows shortly after. We should discuss this face-to-face like adults, no need for lawyers. I delete them all. The letter arrives on a Tuesday. Heavy cream paper, expensive letterhead. Davidson, Price and Associates, attorneys at law. I laugh out loud as I read their claim of familial financial obligation and moral responsibility to support immediate family members in need. Grandfather reviews it that evening, his face grim. They're actually trying to intimidate you legally. This is a new low. I pull out the folder the bank officer gave me last month. Inside, copies of the withdrawal slips. Mom's signature next to reason for withdrawal, tuition payment. The security camera still showing Mom and Gary at the counter, timestamp matching the transaction. Let them try, I say, feeling strangely calm. I'm not the one who should be afraid of what a judge might say. Grandfather squeezes my shoulder. You've become quite the strategist, Maddie. For the first time in years, I feel not just angry, but powerful. I learned from the best, I tell him, just not in the way Mom intended. The legal letter sits on my kitchen counter like a snake coiled to strike. Familial financial obligation, printed in bold at the top, as if family can be reduced to a financial transaction. I trace my finger over the embossed letterhead of Whitman and Associates, wondering how much my mother paid for this elaborate intimidation. My phone buzzes. Aunt Cheryl, my mother's youngest sister. Again. Madeline, she says when I answer, her voice honey, sweet with insincerity. I was hoping we could talk. An hour later, she sits across from me at my small kitchen table, stirring sugar into tea she hasn't tasted. Your mother is devastated by this rift, Aunt Cheryl says, placing her hand over mine. I resist the urge to pull away. Can't you just help Brooke this once, for family peace? I sip my tea, buying time. The same family peace that vanished when my mother took $31,000 from me? Aunt Cheryl's smile tightens. You've done so well for yourself, despite everything. Her eyes dart around my modest apartment. Surely you understand that success comes with certain obligations to those who raised you. Obligations. I repeat, tasting the bitterness of the word. Like honesty, respect, protection. She leaves 20 minutes later. Mission unaccomplished. As I close the door behind her, my phone rings with my boss's number. Madeline, I received a strange call today, he says without preamble. Someone suggesting we should review your financial history due to instability concerns. Care to explain? My stomach knots. Gary. The calls keep coming throughout the week. Distant cousins taking sides on Facebook. An uncle questioning my grandparents about what really happened. The whispers spreading through our extended family like poison. Then Brooke appears at my door on Saturday morning, eyes red-rimmed, clutching her phone. I can't handle a roommate, she blurts before I can speak. The apartment Dad and Patricia found costs more than my housing allowance. They said you owed us. She looks down. Me. I step back, allowing her inside. She hovers near the door like she might bolt. "They told you I owed you $31,000? I ask, keeping my voice neutral. "Not exactly." Brooke wipes her eyes. "They said family helps family, and you weren't being fair after everything they did for you." I almost laugh. "What exactly did they do for me, Brooke?" Her silence answers everything. The conference room at Wellington Legal gleams with polished mahogany and leather chairs. My lawyer, Miss Chen, arranges her notepad with precision, her face betraying nothing. I smooth my skirt, checking my watch. They arrive 5 minutes late, a calculated power move. My mother sweeps in first, Chanel suit and pearls, her armor for battle. Gary follows, his hand possessively at her back. Brooke skulks behind them, eyes darting around the room before settling on the floor. Their lawyer, a silver-haired man with monogrammed cufflinks, nods curtly as introductions are made. "I understand we're here to discuss some family matters," he begins, his voice rich with condescension. "Something about an apartment for the younger daughter?" "Before we discuss Brooke's apartment needs," I say, placing a large manila envelope on the polished table, "let's address the existing debt." My mother's smile freezes. "Debt? There's no debt between us, Madeline. Just a daughter who abandoned her family." Miss Chen opens the envelope, removing documents with deliberate care. "The first item," she says, sliding a paper toward their lawyer, "is the bank record showing withdrawal of $31,042 on the 17th of April, 2019, at 2:14 p.m. from Madeline Reynolds' savings account." Their lawyer adjusts his glasses, scanning the document. "Next," Miss Chen continues, placing a grainy image on the table. "Security footage from First National's Maple Street branch, showing Patricia Reynolds and Gary Whitfield at the counter at exactly 2:14 p.m. The color drains from my mother's face. Gary straightens in his chair. "That's perfectly legal," he interrupts. "Patricia was a co-signer on that account." "Indeed," Miss Chen agrees pleasantly. "However, the withdrawal slip this document here states the purpose as tuition payment for Madeline Reynolds at Brookfield University." She taps the paper. "Madeline never received those funds." "This is absurd," my mother hisses. "You can't possibly." "We also have this affidavit," Miss Chen continues, unruffled, "from Bank Officer Thomas Jennings, noting his concerns about the transaction. Particularly interesting is his documentation of Mrs. Whitfield's refusal to provide contact information for Madeline to confirm the withdrawal purpose." The family lawyer leans toward Gary, whispering urgently. Brooke stares at my mother, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. "The statute of limitations for financial fraud in this state," Miss Chen notes, "is 7 years. We're approaching year 6. Gary attempts to speak, but only manages to stutter. My mother's perfectly manicured nails dig into the leather portfolio she clutches. I lean forward, meeting my mother's eyes directly. "Return my money with interest $38,622.17 to be precisier. We proceed legally." "You wouldn't dare," she whispers. "We're family." "Family doesn't steal from family," I reply, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "Patricia," their lawyer interjects softly, "I advise you to consider this offer very carefully." Tears well in my mother's eyes. The performance I've seen countless times. I remain silent. "You have 48 hours to decide," I say, standing. Miss Chen gathers the documents as I walk out, back straight, steps measured. Through the glass wall, I glimpse Gary gesturing wildly at their lawyer. My mother sits motionless, staring at nothing. In the parking lot, their raised voices carry across the asphalt. I don't turn to watch. My phone buzzes with a text from Brooke as I reach my car. "I didn't know. I'm so sorry." 26 hours later, Miss Chen calls. "Their lawyer contacted me. They've agreed to your terms." The courier arrives the next morning with a certified check and a handwritten note on my mother's monogram stationery. "Consider this matter closed." I trace my finger over her elegant handwriting, fold the note precisely, and drop it into my shredder. Sunlight streams through my apartment windows, casting golden squares across the hardwood floor. 1 year after the storm, and I wake without that familiar knot in my stomach. I sip coffee from my new mug, solid ceramic, impossible to break, and study the framed college diploma hanging on my wall. Next to it, a framed bank statement shows a balance of $37,246.18. My recovered money plus interest, justice in numerical form. My phone doesn't make me flinch anymore when it chimes. The sound once triggered a cascade of dread, wondering what fresh manipulation awaited. Now it's just a phone. When the text arrives, your cousin Jessica's wedding is next month. Family expects you there. I feel nothing. No spike of anxiety, no surge of anger. I simply set the phone down and continue spreading peanut butter on my toast. An hour later, I still haven't replied. I don't need to. The boundary stands without explanation or defense. "How's the presentation coming?" Dr. Winters asks during our weekly session. We don't talk about Mom anymore. Or Gary. Or the theft. Instead, we discuss my promotion opportunities, my weekend plans with friends, the container garden flourishing on my balcony. I'm ready, I tell her. 6 people from different financial backgrounds. I'm focusing on practical steps rather than horror stories. She nods. Looking forward, not back. That evening, Grandpa raises his glass at Ferraro's Italian restaurant. To the newest senior analyst at Westbrook Partners. Grandma beams beside him. Aunt Helen clinks her glass against mine, her eyes crinkling with genuine pride. My college roommate Dana whoops loudly enough to turn heads. My friend Miguel, who started in the mailroom the same day I started as a junior analyst, grins and adds, they didn't stand a chance against Hurricane Madeline. No drama. No ulterior motives. Just celebration. The next day at the community center, I arrange handouts for my financial literacy workshop. A young woman lingers after the others file in, clutching her purse like someone might snatch it. My stepfather emptied my account last month, she whispers. $3,000. Everyone says I should just forgive him to keep the peace. I recognize the shame in her downcast eyes, the slight hunch of her shoulders. The most valuable thing I recovered wasn't the money, I tell her quietly. It was learning who I am without their approval. Hope flickers across her face, that particular expression of someone realizing they aren't alone. At home, I finally remove the old family photo from my drawer. Mom, Dad, and 8-year-old me at Lake Michigan, before cancer took him, before Gary, before everything fractured. I don't toss it, that would require anger I no longer harbor. I simply place it in a memory box alongside other artifacts from a different life. In its place on my dresser stands a new frame. Grandma and Grandpa flanking me at graduation. Aunt Helen with her arms slung over my shoulder at Thanksgiving. Dana and Miguel posing dramatically in front of my new apartment building. Some gardens grow better after pruning, Grandma told me last month while we planted tomatoes on my balcony. Her weathered hands patted the soil with certainty. The realtor's business card sits on my counter beside house listings. The recovered money plus my savings equals a down payment. A home of my own, built on my terms. When my phone rings with an unknown number, I almost let it go to voicemail. Work habit makes me answer. Madeline? The voice is hesitant. Familiar. Brooke. My pulse remains steady. Can I? A pause. Can I ask your advice? The setting sun paints my walls orange as I consider my response. Not my responsibility, but perhaps my choice. I can listen, I say finally, watching the light change. But I need honesty in return. I hear her exhale. The conversation begins on my terms as the day fades into evening.